I bought this house without using any of my own money. It's one of my latest rental properties. I'm gonna walk you through exactly how I did it. Rip open the curtains. I'm gonna show you how we bought it step by step in this video. Before I go over the numbers, make sure you stay tuned to the end to hear Maisie's joke of the day. Also, if you like this case study style video, make sure to give this video a like. All right, let's go to the smartboard. I'm gonna walk through the BRRRR method, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and scale with you. All right. I bought this property from a local wholesaler, somebody that I have bought houses from before. He actually got this deal from somebody he used to work with. He used to be a plumber, and this plumber came across a property that somebody needed out of, and this wholesaler thought of me and brought it to me. So it's all about the connections you make. So that's where I was able to source this deal from. I used the ARV times 80% minus repairs, the max allowable formula, to buy it. Now, I usually tell you to go at 75% to be conservative, especially if you're gonna maybe sell it. But the fact that I'm keeping it and I'm actually okay leaving a few bucks in the deal, I use this formula to make sure I was able to buy it. So after I looked at the property and ran some comparables on it, it's a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,200 square foot split level. So I found recently sold 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,200 square foot split levels, and was able to come up with an ARV. I was getting anywhere from 195 to 215, but I want to be conservative when I'm running my numbers. So my after repair value that I plugged into my formula was 200,000. Multiply that times 0.8. I even know that, that's 160,000. And then my repairs I have budgeted at 40,000. It needs quite a bit of work. I'm gonna show you that when you see the pictures. You're gonna see before and after. We're gonna go over the budget, but minus 40,000. So that puts my strike price at $120,000. That's what I brought to the wholesaler, Dennis. And Dennis said he couldn't get it done for 120, but he could get it done for 121. So we ended up buying it at $121,000. Now, how did I fund it? Because as I said earlier, I didn't use any of my own money. You can use a hard money lender or a private money lender. I used my main private money lender, Steve, for this deal. So he gave me $121,000 to purchase it, plus he gave me $40,000 to fix it up. So he gave me $161,000. And as I'm gonna walk through this with you, and as you'll see from the pictures, I took his money and I bought it and I fixed it up. We're gonna talk about how I'm gonna get him his money back, plus interest, later on in this video. All right, so here's the rehab. I'm gonna walk you through this. As you can see, this is how I like to break out my rehab budgets. I like to go exterior, interior, and then miscellaneous. So on the exterior, as you can see by the pictures that are popping up, it needed quite a bit of work. It wasn't like falling apart, I guess. Some of the parts were kind of crumbling, but in general, it's just an ugly looking house. And when we rehab properties for rentals, we don't just half-ass them. We make them really, really nice. We're not slumlords. We have pride in ownership. So as you'll see, we made this a really, really nice house. We didn't just stick paint on it and cover up the ugly. We rehabbed it and made it nice. There are a lot of reasons you do that. The first reason is it gets you in a higher appraised value. The nicer you make your house, the nicer it's worth. It also allows you to attract better tenants. Good tenants have options. So if you're just taking an ugly house and putting some paint on it, that's not probably going to attract the best type of tenants. Tenants look at houses that they're going to live in like they look at houses that they're going to buy. They want a nice kitchen, they want nice bathrooms, they want nice floors, they want freshly painted walls. At least the good tenants do, and we love our tenants because they're all good tenants. We'll get into that in the rent section of this video, but just as you'll see, we made this house pretty nice, and there's a lot of reasons why we do that. We also rehab it really, really extensively because that's going to lower the maintenance over time. If you just cover up something, eventually it's going to break. But if you replace it, it might not break for 10, 20, 30 years. So that's what we like to do. Maintenance-free, nice houses. As you can see by the exterior, it needed about $10,000 in exterior work. That included some siding work, that included some soffits and fascia. The roof was in good shape, but we put about 10 grand in the outside of the house on the actual house. Then there was a little bit of cleanup, you know, cutting those shrubs up front and just kind of sprucing everything up. So we put $2,000 in that. As you can see by the kitchen, it's a pretty simple, just L-shaped kitchen. We put brand new cabinets, countertops, backsplash even. We even added backsplash on this, and new appliances. A couple were slightly used, but overall they're in really good shape. So that whole kitchen, because it was a little bit of smaller one, no island, not a ton of cabinets, cost us about 9 grand. We like to have one simple luxury vinyl plank throughout all of our rental properties. We pretty much use this same style in every single one, so we have the materials, so if there's any overages or anything like that, or we need to replace it, we have it all on deck. So we took out all the old flooring and put brand new luxury vinyl plank throughout. It's really scratch proof and spill proof, so it's a really good solid surface. Costs a little bit more money. So for this, we put $8,000 in flooring, which included new baseboards throughout the house. As I said earlier, we want everything to look fresh and new and clean, so we painted all the walls, all the ceilings, and most of the doors. They were in good shape. We replace doors sometimes if they're in rough shape, but they're in good shape if they're just slab doors. We'll paint them white, they look great. So for our painting, we put $7 grand. I love what we do in our bathrooms. We make them really nice, but it's a really inexpensive way to do it. As you'll see in both the bathrooms, we just kept the luxury vinyl plank. We had a new vanity, new toilet, new light, new mirror, and then we actually spray glazed some of the old tile. It was in perfect shape, so rather than replace it, we just glazed it, made it look super nice, super fresh, and we were able to do both bathrooms for $1,500 each. That's it. In the miscellaneous, I like to just put money for overages, for door handles, any little thing just to have some extra money in there, which also includes the utilities we have, which aren't very much, just some simple holding costs we have. I do not include the interest I'm paying my private money lender in this number though. So for this number, I just threw $5 grand in there. So to rehab this house up to the condition that we expect and our tenants expect, we're gonna put about $44,000 into it. Now, I have a nice house that's fixed up and ready to rent. I still owe Steve, my private money lender, his $161,000 plus interest. So how do I start to get him his money back without using any of my own? The next step of the BRRRR's process is the rent. So we got this house rented to a great tenant. It took us about 3.5, 4 weeks to find a really good tenant. We're pretty stingent in getting good tenants in place. There's lots of reasons for that. If you take some extra time up front and get a really qualified tenant in place, then you're gonna have less issues with them taking care of the property. You're gonna have less issues collecting rent. They're hopefully gonna stay longer. We have an average of 4 to 5 years that our tenants stay per house, which is huge for us. It makes us cash flow so much more. If you have a tenant leave every 1 or 2 years, when tenants leave, it's super expensive. You have not collecting rent for a while. You have minor repairs, maybe major repairs, maybe some are the tenant's fault, maybe some aren't. So the longer a good tenant stays in place, the more money you're gonna make. So that's why we spend extra time up front. Even if it takes us an extra few weeks or an extra couple months, it's well worth it in our eyes because we got a great tenant that we take care of them. We do what we say on the lease. They do what they say they're gonna do on the lease. And it's just a really good relationship. And it all came to light during this crazy pandemic of the last couple of years. We're collecting 98% of rent, still doing all this craziness because we have great tenants in place. All right, now that we took this house, we bought it, we fixed it up, we got it rented. Now is the refinance step. This is the most integral and most important part of the BRRRR's process because this gets your money on long-term low interest rates and allows you to pay back your private lender the higher interest rates as quickly as possible and get out of that short-term debt into the long-term debt so that you can cash flow and let real estate do what it does, which I'll show you in a minute. As I stated earlier, I was pretty conservative in what I thought the property was going to be worth. I put $200,000 in the formula. It actually appraised for $215,000. It's probably worth more like $220,000, $225,000. That's okay, you're not always gonna get 100% of what you think it's worth. They're usually gonna take what houses are selling and slightly knock them down because the market's not speaking. It's an appraiser giving the bank that number. So this property appraised for $200,000 and the bank wrote us a check, a cashier's check, which is what they'll do on a cash out refinance in this step, these small local banks. So the bank wrote us that check for $176,000. And if you're paying attention at all, which probably some of you are, you'll notice that we ended up spending $44,000 when we got $40,000 from our private lender. But this is a private lender that's been with us since day one. So as we were nearing the end of the project, we told them we needed another $4 grand. So he ended up giving us $44,000. So we got a check from the bank for $176,000. So we ended up getting a check for $176,000 from the bank. I'll get to that in a minute, how we're gonna pay them back. But we owed our private lender $165,000. That was $121,000 for the purchase and $44,000 for the rehab. So we wrote him a check for $165,000 back plus $11,000 in interest, which of course equals that $176,000 the bank gave us. Now we didn't pay him a full $11,000. I don't remember the exact amount. It was a couple grand less, but that doesn't really matter. It's more about this process and how it works and how we didn't have to use any of our own money to do it. So now that we're at this step, we paid our private lender back his money plus interest. He's happy, he's good. We have a nice house with a tenant in it paying us rent. I have taxes, insurance, but I have a mortgage on this $176,000 check that the bank gave me. It turned into a mortgage at 4% over 25 years. So that payment went way down, so I'm able to cash flow. I'm collecting $1,800 a month rent from the tenant. I'm subtracting out my mortgage on that 176 and all my owning expenses. And at the end of the day, on paper, which is pretty much what's happening, you know, we've had this property for several months now, we're collecting about $225 a month of net positive cash flow. So the last part of the BRRRR method is the scale method. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on it, but if you want to buy more than one rental property and you want to create that financial freedom and buy a lot of rental properties, you're going to need to learn how to scale, which to me is bigger, better, faster, stronger, more efficiently, more effective. So you can do it, rather than do 2 a year, you can do 10 a year and then maybe 20 a year. So there is a huge process that goes into that. I talk about it all the time on this channel. I talk about it on my TikTok, my Instagram. I have a mentorship that really breaks it down. So if you have any interest in learning more about scaling, just send me a message on Instagram, I'll reply. Before I show you how real estate does what it does and how I was able to turn 40 grand equity into $250,000 equity in just 15 years, I gotta tell you Maisie's joke of the day. What do you call a fish wearing a bow tie? Sophisticated. Like sophisticated kids. All right, here's what happens. Here's what real estate does what it does. This is the power of the BRRRR method. This is why it creates wealth. This is just one property. In 2022, I have $39,000 of equity. It's worth $215 is what it appraised for, actually more, and I owe the bank $176. So that's $39,000 in equity. But over the next 15 years, that property is going to go up in value a lot. Of course, it's going to dip. There's going to be ebbs and flows, but overall, it's going to go up a lot. So conservatively, in 2037, in 15 years, it's going to be worth $350,000. And the mortgage is going to be paid down, not by me, but by the rent from the tenant. So without me doing anything besides managing the property properly and taking care of my tenants, which doesn't come out of my pocket, it comes out of the rent, $40,000 turns into $250,000 in just 15 years, and that does not even include the positive cash flow you get from owning rental properties the right way. So just imagine that times 5, times 10, times 20, times 30, times however many properties you want, because there's no limit to how many properties you can buy with the BRRRR method in an LLC. This is how you do it. And if you would like to see another case study on exactly how I did this, walking through the properties before and after, check out the video next to me. And if you would like to see a playlist that walks through 5 steps how to do this, check out that as well. See you on the next one.